if we could address you directly right now?
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good wash in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. Keep going a little bit longer.
Friend Brown this, Friend Brown that.
If you want me to take a lie detector, Brian, I'll take it.
Portal watch this, Portal watch that.
The dog Marmaduke. People say I like that dog.
What are you talking about playing walk-on? Who do you think walked onto the team?
Anybody that thinks this is going to come back is either naive or plain stupid.
All across CNY.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
It's the 315.
Hardy faking, feeds the Grace Jameson. Got it!
He scores! Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, welcome. Thursday. What in the world is falling from the skies today? Be safe out there, people. I don't know where you are, what's going on. It looks just kind of wet out here downtown, but wild and wacky. You get a little north, you get a little different direction, you get a little couple degrees off. Things are, woo, doggy. Things are going to be a little wild here over the commute tonight and into tomorrow morning. So, you know, pay attention. When you're driving your automobile, take an extra minute. Listen to a radio program. I don't know. Join us here in the Cuse in Utica, in Rome. What's up, Rome? Cuse Sports Talk. You might be somewhere where this isn't falling from the sky upon you. Join us in the chat, Cuse Sports Talk, CuseSportsTalk.com, Twitch, YouTube, all the places, all the things. We are there. We are everywhere. We are anywhere. Get in the chat and we'll talk to you over the course of the show here today. What do we got going on here on a Thursday? Be joined by our friend Isaac Shade of the Locked On College Basketball podcast. We'll talk about, you know, college basketball. He's also of the Locked On Carolina podcast. And it just so happens that Syracuse's next basketball game, coincidentally enough, is against North Carolina. So we'll talk to Isaac about the Happy Haps down in Chapel Hill this season, where no, they don't have a losing record, but the local populace ain't very pleased in the current state of North Carolina basketball right now. So a matchup of frustrated fan bases Saturday in the Dome at 6 o'clock. What else do we got for you on the show? We'll check in with Tim Leonard later on. He's out on the West Coast, getting ready for Syracuse and Stanford women's basketball late night. 10 o'clock. 7 o'clock local. But you're here. 10 o'clock. 9:45 with the pregame for Tim. We'll hit some lax with Tim as well as the men's lacrosse team gets set to face Maryland on Saturday at 2 o'clock down in College Park. So lots of good stuff to get into. We got some football nuggets coming up later on. They've announced who has been invited to the NFL Combine. Multiple Syracuse names to talk about there. And Carmelo Anthony. New gig for Melo? New gig for Melo. Talk about that as we go along here on this Thursday. With that, welcome in. Phone lines open. You know that. They'll be wide open to you throughout this first hour at 315-437-7644 for ESPN 44. Whatever is on the top of your dome today. You want to talk hoops, you want to talk whatever. Give a ring, 315-437-7644.
We start with a Burdick BMW opening drive.
Yeah, don't quite rev it like that with the current state of the weather. There's a warning in effect. What are we being warned of for? Warning in effect. Lake effect snow warning remains in effect till Saturday morning. Oh, well, that includes all day tomorrow. So, you know, drive slower. How about that? If you don't think it's ice, it might be ice. So don't go skidding across the road. Getting in my way, people. All right. With that, where should we start today? Where should we? Yes, I know where to start. We will start where we seemingly always start, and that is the current status of the Syracuse basketball team, which remains, as I said yesterday, exactly the same. The current status of because nothing has happened since yesterday. I said it yesterday that even after the loss to Miami, which was, right there with the worst of the year, considering the current state of Miami, remained exactly the same as the day before. We're in a situation where things ain't good, but they haven't been good, and that's just where we are over the course of this year. Things haven't been good. Things are currently not good, and there are 3 weeks remaining in the season, and that's where we're at right now. And salvation does not appear imminent, at least at any point this month or next. But here we arrive at yet another Syracuse basketball conversation. And Red Autry was on Orange Nation earlier today, as he is every week, brought to you by our friends at Oswego County Mutual. So, Red looked tired, man. I get it. We're all tired. I probably look tired right now. The bags they're living on the bags right now. It's that time of the year. Everyone's tired. But Red looked exhausted earlier today. Like, he's up nights thinking about what to do about this basketball team. A basketball team that just gave up 91 points to the last place team in the league on Tuesday night down in South Beach. Here was Red after the game on Monday. It would be helpful if I'm not also playing the show twice for you. That's too many times for the show. We'll stick to once. How about that? We'll stick to once. Here's Red after the game on Monday.
We had some ups and downs this year, but today was really, I was very, very disappointed in the effort. Had nothing to do with anything else but our effort and playing defense. And we didn't do that at all today.
And that was after the game on Monday, and I don't think anyone disagreed at the time. Here, Red from about 3 hours ago.
Let's give Miami some credit. They have a talented roster. All right? My expectations for my players, I don't care who we play against, Duke, Cooper, Flagler, I know how talented they are, but I expect my guys to go out and compete and fight. All right? And if we don't get the job done, I'm frustrated and I'm going to challenge them. I'm not going to lower my standard and my abilities of my players, all right? So, again, I'll probably have to do a better job of that, but it's not lack of effort. Our guys are trying. Our guys are in here, they do what we ask, all right? Do they execute it? Do they execute it every time? No. But those guys are resilient. They're not quitting. These guys come in and practice every day. They got a great spirit about them.
And, we've had that up on social media for the last few hours. And pretty much with the case of anything that Red has said or Griff on the show yesterday has said or anybody in relation to Syracuse basketball has said over the course of the last few months, it doesn't really have anything to do with anything they said. It's just another opportunity to, lay waste to this year's team, coaching staff, and otherwise. And the frustration about this year's Syracuse basketball team, understandable. They're not good. It is the worst version of Syracuse basketball most of us have seen in our lifetime. That's not really an opinion. That's the fact of the matter of what we're watching here this year. But people also may say, well, didn't Red say on Monday he said it was effort, and today he said it wasn't effort? And how dare he contradict himself? What I'm seeing right now is the team is not good enough. That literally cannot change for the rest of this year, because it's going to be the same players for the rest of this year. The team does not have enough talent to consistently compete at a high level this year, which leads to swings in effort, swings in the appearances of effort, swings in defense, swings in shooting. Like when the talent level's not as high, the consistency is nowhere near as high. And I think that is more the explainer for anything than, well, is it effort? Is it coaching? Is it players? Yes. The answer remains yes. It's all of that. But it's because when you have not as much talent to work with, and yes, the coaches know it's on them to bring in the players. Yes, we know the whole thing. This is not a reprieve for anybody involved. But when you don't have as much talent, like every little thing gets amplified. Like if you are giving enough effort, it may not make up for the talent deficiency. If you're slightly more talented and have a slippage in effort, well, okay. If you're not quite as talented and you're not, right on top of the game plan to a T, well, you're going to be a half a step late. Like the Orange don't have any ability to cover up their mistakes this year. Like, there isn't. Like quite literally an eraser on the back end. There isn't, one guy got beat up top because they were a step slow, a step late, out of position, whatever. So, thank goodness we got that guy who blocked shots. No, they don't have that this year. Or anything like that. Like, whatever the mistake is has been amplified 10 times over, it feels like, and we've seen it this year, because the correction just doesn't exist. The correction just doesn't exist. The Orange have to play darn near perfect of their own ability every time on the court to win one of these games. And then when they don't, whatever it is, it gets magnified seemingly 20-fold every time, which leads to what we hear from Red, frustrated after the game on Tuesday. What we hear from him today, a day and a half later, where it doesn't look like he's gotten a lot of shut-eye over the course of the last 36, 48 hours or so, of trying to figure out, okay, 6 games left against a lot of like teams. North Carolina, they're talking a lot of the same stuff. Yeah, they got a winning record. They're 14-11, though. Nobody's happy in Chapel Hill. Talking a lot of the same stuff this year there as we are here. One of the most successful programs of all time. It should be in the top whatever every year. They're not doing it this year. Frustration abounds in North Carolina. Pittsburgh on Tuesday. Pitt, snubbed, screwed from the tournament last year. This year, we're going to show them, and my goodness, the wheels have come off come 2025. Had a strong start to the year, but we're seeing tires careening down the backstretch. Look at other teams on the schedule. Miami last game. Yeah, Miami won the game. They were in the Final Four 2 years ago, and they're a mess. It's the very peculiar state that is college basketball right now, where consistency is just as long as, one thought. And then it vanishes. That's where we're at right now. It's rough, and you can just see it. Red is scraping for answers, clearly trying everything, and the answers this year aren't there. And I guess that's where we get to the fork in the road, I think. I think a lot of people have decided that Red is incapable of finding the answers ever in the future. I think they're going to give him another chance to find the answers. Because of Sadiq White, because of Kyan Anthony, because 2 years isn't a lot of years, because of a lot of reasons. It doesn't really matter what the reasons are. But the answers aren't there to be found this year. It just doesn't seem. Because they've tried a lot of different things. And it hasn't, things have worked for, spurts, dribbles, drabs, just a little here, a little there. But then you're like, well, that worked. Let's do it again later. There's no consistency to it. And that's what happens when you show up with, a knife to a gunfight, or pick your favorite analogy of that stuff. Because Syracuse just doesn't have the weaponry that they've been able to have. They don't have a secondary answer to things. We're going to listen back to some Carmelo Anthony later in the show. He was rapsing poetic about his time in Syracuse and the 03 title team. I mean, think about that team. Obviously, they won the national championship. They had it. Think about the tournament. Think about, the Oklahoma State game in the tournament? Melo didn't have it that day. Melo didn't have it. Billy Edelin and Josh Pace, though, did. They came in and saved the day. The Orange, they don't have option 2 this year. Like, if JJ's not scoring 20-something, if Eddie Lampkin doesn't have a double-double, if Chris Bell doesn't hit a couple of threes, if, add on whatever else you are to the pile, if Jaquan Carlos turns the ball over too many times, if they miss free throws, there's so many things that have to go right this year. There is no margin for error. And every error gets amplified as, it's Red's fault, or my goodness, how are they bad at this? How are they bad at that? And it just feels like it's amplifying and amplifying and amplifying as the season goes along, where, man, they all just need a little break from that spotlight, which ain't coming. I mean, it's not coming for 3-4 more weeks. That's not how it works. You don't get one. Yeah, they don't have a game next weekend. It's not a break. Yeah, it's a day without a game. It's not a break from that spotlight. Maybe for a day or two, but it's not. It's just not how this works. This is the story, and it remains the story for the next month. And only when the season ends and we can begin turning our attention to next year's roster, transfer portal, maybe get distracted by the NCAA tournament and try to watch it and not be sad that Syracuse isn't in it. All that good stuff. Maybe then we can see it through a different lens and wonder what might be going forward. But I just don't see any way. We look at it through a different lens over the course of the next few weeks. So this same conversation, oh yeah, we will have it again, and we will have it again, and we will have it again, and it will just keep happening. Griff's up for coffee though tomorrow morning if anybody wants to go join him and chat about it, because he knows. They all know the deal. It is wildly frustrating to you, me, them, everybody involved. It's our Burdick BMW opening drive here today. With that, let's see if we had frustration or success on the stock market today. We'll bring in our guy Mike from Lee Baldwin. All right, Mike, how'd this Thursday go for you?
Brian, not much frustration in the markets today. All three major averages rallied, led by the NASDAQ up about 1.5%. So best day of the week, and we got past those inflation numbers everyone was worried about the last 2 days. It had a nice rally. We also had some nice rallies in the hospitality stocks. MGM reported last night. It was up 17% today, so a great day for MGM. And Wynn followed with earnings just after the close tonight. And I'm also looking at Airbnb, who just reported earnings in the last 30 seconds. That stock's actually trading up $20 to $161. So some strong stocks there. Our dog is in the same industry, though. Hyatt Hotels reported, and that's down 9%. So go figure. Hyatt's struggling, but the other three that reported are all doing well. And let's see if we can close out tomorrow on an uptone in the market, Brian.
Hopefully so, Mike. There we are. Literally up to the second updates from Mike. We like that. There we are. All the diamonds and none of the dogs from Lee Baldwin. Check him out. LeeBaldwin.com. LeeBaldwin.com. All right, phone lines open for the next hour or so. If you want to chime in on the hoops conversation, some football news and nuggets as well. Combine invites are out. How many Orange players will be in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine? We'll tell you that as we roll along here on this Thursday. Phone lines open, 315-437-7644. Back next, Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio.
Syracuse basketball head.
Oh, what's up, chat? How are we? That is true, CBW. It is the first day it has rained in Syracuse in months. Oh, man, what you wouldn't do for a Tyus battle now, right? Man. Tyus was pretty good, huh? Raining in San Diego. Stop the presses. Look, it's Mike.
I had a question for you that I was just kind of pondering in my mind.
Mike has a question. He's going to move it from his mind out of his mouth.
Do you think that Ben Simmons has had the most successful fabricated career in NBA history?
Do I think Ben Simmons has had the most successful fabricated career in NBA history?
Because he's literally done nothing his entire career. But he's made an uber amount of money.
He was like good the 1 year and a half-ish, right?
Yeah, I mean, he won Rookie of the Year.
Well, after that, though, wasn't he like second team All-NBA or some 1 year? 13?
Yeah, I think his first 2 seasons, he got some pretty good nods.
He had a legitimate good year, and it was like one of those years where it fell apart in the playoffs on him.
My question is, did he have a good year, or was his team not that good? You know what I mean?
No, it's like a playoff team, though, because it was like the first year, like he was good, then they got to the playoffs, and their team was like, shoot a three-pointer. And he's like... And it broke him in half.
That was when he tried passing out of the layup over Trae Young.
Yeah, like the kick out to, like he was at the rim and was like, I'm going to pass it 40 feet away. Let's see. The most?
Because I don't know if I could think of anybody else who has, because at today's age of basketball, so much money is put into lottery picks that more people are willing to try to let them play it out.
Well, there's also, have there been bigger busts? Sure, like guys that have literally never done anything. But they just vanished.
Yeah.
What's his name? Who was the guy that Darko? Like Darko just vanished.
Mm.
Let's see. So who's had a long career that was like fake good for a minute?
I'm trying to think.
I mean, Simmons has got to be high up on that list.
Yeah, I can't think of any. That's why I asked the question.
Here, you want the football equivalent?
Sure.
Daniel Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
great.
Fair.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that.
Thanks for that. Great.
But hey, at least he had a playoff win. Ben Simmons didn't.
You're on Michael Carter-Williams, Coach T. I mean, he was Rookie of the Year, but
I don't think he didn't have massive expectations.
Yeah, that was more like, how about that?
Yeah, his expectations, I would argue, skyrocketed after he got into the league. Is that fair? And then obviously he tabled off, but he didn't have high expectations going into the career. Like with Ben Simmons, his entire career has been all off of his college grade. You know what I mean?
Dion Waiters Island. Dion had a wild NBA career.
I would argue that Dion Waiters also exceeded a lot of expectations. I mean, he didn't start a single game for Syracuse, then he goes in the top 5 and has a pretty lengthy career. Where at one point he was the vocal leader of a team too with Miami.
Dion had an excitingly weird NBA career.
He was such a good ISO guy.
Champion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he wasn't there when the games were played. But
no. But hey, got one. All right, bye.
All right. Derek Coleman. Derek had a better career than Ben Simmons. Derek did not max his potential out, but Derek has had a better career than Ben Simmons. No, we're talking more about not recruit-wise, but NBA-wise, what these guys have done in Q's Vegas. Sebastian Telfair. There's an interesting name, Kev. Yeah. Bassy. We just have somebody on the line named Coach? I don't believe that's his real name. All right, back at it here on this rainy, icy, snowy, depending on where you are, Thursday. Be safe out there on the roads. Be safe out there on the roads here today. All right, phone lines open, 315-437-7644. I don't know if this is his real name. We have a coach in North Syracuse on the line. Coach, what's up?
What's going on, Brian? Listened to your opening there. Thought you hit the nail on the hat on a lot of things. I'm all for giving Coach Autry another season. I've long said to anybody I've talked to that I think it's important he gets more of his guys in and he gets that opportunity. I will say that the thing that worries me most is some of the comments and how he sees the game, especially on the defensive end. I can't remember if it was the first exhibition game or first regular season game. He was asked about the defense, and the excuse he came up with was, well, we're playing at a higher pace. So because we're playing at a higher pace, there's more possessions, and there's going to be more scoring on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I could have told you, Coach, it's the defense that's the issue, not that you're playing at a higher pace. After the Georgetown loss, he blames it on the zone offense over the last 4 minutes, which surely was a problem. But during that same press conference, he mentioned how he thought the defense was good. The problem with that is he allowed Georgetown's offense to shoot 48% from the field, and that was despite Georgetown shooting 6 of 25 from three-point range, which ended up meaning that Georgetown shot 63% from 2, and Coach Autry said that was a good defensive performance. I've played basketball. I've coached basketball. I've never been part of a game where giving up the other team, allowing them to shoot 63% from two-point range is a good defensive effort. And as I watch this team time and time again, and I know for a lot of fans, the Boston College 3-overtime game was one of those just mind-blowing moments where, sure, you won the game, but how you had to win the game was ridiculous.
Right.
I don't know. And maybe I'll be honest, I haven't heard as much of his comments lately because I've just had to tune out from all of it. But I'm not sure what you're teaching the team there when they need a 3 and Eddie Lampkin is sitting in the paint. And I know that was a big part of what people saw, but also what are you telling to JJ on that play? As soon as the inbound comes in, he's dropping towards the three-point line when his offensive player is going the other way. And unfortunately, time and time again, guarding ball screens, hedging, letting guys go right by. The on-ball defense is horrific, letting guys drive right by, and the help defense has been even worse. And unfortunately, defense is 90% effort, And if you can't get your guys to play and give that effort, that's been the most disappointing part about this year's team. And every comment I've heard from Coach Autry does not give me the confidence that he sees the game the right way to be able to fix that no matter how many years he goes. So I'm rooting for him. I hope he figures it out, but he certainly needs to see the game in a better light from a coaching standpoint because, as I think a lot of people have said, he's a great guy, and obviously as a player he saw the game in a good way. But from a coaching standpoint, it's just not getting through to the rest of the team.
Coach, I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment, at least to some extent, and thank you for the call. When I look at, let's isolate the last play regulation of the Boston College game, which we've talked about, and then I think it came up today on Orange Nation as well with Stephen Pauly. If you want to check out the full interview with Red on our YouTube page at Q Sports Talk. So, and Pauly has verified this because he was literally sitting right there and could hear the conversation. Red communicated to the guys the need to foul on the last play, and it was not executed that way. And I feel if you're Red, and I think this is part of why you don't, the consistency of his answers can wobble a little bit. He's kind of stuck between I told them what to do. It didn't happen. I don't want to throw my players under the bus. I don't want everybody to think that I'm screwing it up. It's a really weird spot. I don't know what Lampkin was doing on that last play. JJ, unfortunately, no JJ today, brought to us by our friends at RomanoCars.com. He had class. But he didn't get where he needed to be. There was a potential moving screen in there, but I know it's communicated. Is it, if we're looking at the Red side of things, is it a communication issue? Is what he is saying, while correct, not sinking in? Is it an execution issue? Is it a combination issue? I think that is what, for us, me, you, whatever, how are we supposed to know what the breakdown is of that? How are we supposed to know? I don't know. And we've been so used to Coach Boeheim for decades upon decades upon decades. He was at the Duke game last night. That, you kind of always knew where Jim was coming from, right? Because you'd seen it. I mean, we'd seen him coach those moments so many times before. We all kind of knew what he wanted people to do for the most part, just because we'd seen him deal with it so many times before. So, if things went wonky, then it was a lot easier to decipher what it was, just because we had all seen it so many times before. Here, I think Red's kind of stuck between hey, I don't want to be the guy who's throwing my players under the bus. But, and then the inference that we all get to make on the but part of things is where things get a little squirrely. It feels like. It doesn't make what actually happens any better. They still screwed up the last play and should have lost the game because of it. It doesn't make anything better. The why doesn't actually matter in how that game goes down. I think the why matters in, will it be fixed? Because the why is is this not being communicated well? Is this not being taught well? Is this not being understood well? And it doesn't matter who the players are? Or that with a different group of players, and Sadiq White, just to toss a name out there, is supposed to be an excellent defender. If a guy like him is getting communicated these instructions, do they then get executed at a different level? I don't know. We'll know next year. Last year, the defense wasn't great either, but the offense was more explosive. You had Judah. JJ was in the number 2 role. The offense was more explosive last year, so you could cover that stuff up, and you win 20 games. But you look at the wins they had down the stretch last year, that was, for the most part, outscoring other teams. That was not, lockdown defensive efforts when it comes to it. But yeah, it's the story we keep telling, and it's the story we have to keep telling until there's a different story to tell going forward. All right, we'll take a break. Phone lines remain open. We'll get back to your calls next year at 315-437-7644. Rocking and rolling, talking hoops. Little Q's football as well on this Thursday. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
The sport.
Oh, it's... that I don't know. LA Orange. I think Red has had to play the role to some extent, but that's not necessarily his strong suit. Because in the past, it was Jim. Like, for 40 years, that was Jim's role with the team, and then the assistant's role was to pick the guys back up. So, if you're Red, do you transition into being the bad guy? Do you need to have a bad guy in this day and age? Yeah. Because in the past, like, that was Jim's role, and then Red and Hop and Jerry and Griff or whoever, they were the ones that would pick the guys back up. Oh, yeah, Malik was the best defender on the team, but there was nobody, like, it was not really within a team scheme because the other guys weren't great defenders. Look, it's Mike.
Oh, is it?
Paulie ate it all.
It's okay. I ate right before I got here.
Have a good night, guys.
You have a good night, Paulie. Are you going to have pork chops?
Probably. It's probably going to be noisy.
It's kids' night. Otto will be quiet. I thought you were in the shave to look like a child to get a free meal.
I am.
Strong comeback. Strong.
I didn't realize it was actually a working.
Oh, no, it works.
Yeah. We got a whole series going, dude.
We play games to 1.
You got your breaks coming up on any year we want. They are.
We got
like my future.
We got like two minutes left in the break.
Yeah. No problem, man. Yep.
I don't see any more.
See, he's trying to ice me right now. No,
I'm saying you're trying to rush it. We got 2 minutes left in the break. These games take like 15 seconds.
Listen, I don't need logic. Oh. This is the most prepared you've gotten for a match. Okay. Oh, that was close. Good hit.
Oh, almost gave up an own goal.
Oh. Oh, this isn't good.
Oh, the goal is always wider.
I just want to claim that was probably one of our best matches so far.
It was epic. None of you saw it, but it was fantastic.
Well, here and there, he said, she said.
Oh, yeah, that podcast from earlier in the season, Jen? Yeah, they basically were like, yeah, we're not great at defense. It was Choppa, JJ, and Eddie. I'm like, oh. As far as I know, we still got hoops. Yeah, it's small, Randy. It's a tiny air hockey. Jordan won it in our steal a gift, whatever you want to call it, Christmas party. At Christmas, holiday party, whatever you want to say. So yeah, it's like mini.
It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Here I am. There you are. And the ground is now covered. Phone lines open, 315-437-7644. Talking hoops. Isaac Shade, my guy from the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, will join us next hour. Let's get back to the phones. Where are we going? Let's go to NYC. We got our guy Mark. What's up, Mark?
Not much, sir. I love the Larry David leading music. That gets me fired up.
There you go.
Yeah, the first caller is going to say it far more eloquently than me. I thought he did a fantastic job. Totally rooting for Autry. It's a good thing because I don't think he's going to go anywhere after this year. I mean, again, we all know what the university was facing with Boeheim leaving, not really on his own accord. You take him out, that's like another shot towards Boeheim than anything else. He deserves at least a third year, so he's a root for. He also showed a lot this first year. I mean, 20 wins, we haven't seen him, all that stuff. However, when people start going like, well, once he gets his guys in the air, like Keon and the four recruits coming in, well, he's got more of his guys this year than last year. So let's take that out.
Right.
When you are ranked 320th in defense in the country, and by the way, Miami's like 340, 350, and then you misquote yourself. You say after a press conference it was about effort, then you say a day and a half later it's not about effort. And what's killing me is like ESPN Radio Syracuse is like on this Autry wagon. Like Paulie, when your job's in sports radio and you tell people, well, if you're mad for more than 5 minutes and your team loses, there's a problem. That's laughable because that's really not the job you're in. I think we should be frustrated as heck because it's just the results aren't there on that. And so the thing is, I'm hearing from Autry is give me reasons to be confident. And yes, we have a recruiting class coming in. I think Klein's can be great. But when you just get that frustrated, the guys didn't do what I told them to do, and they told Starling to follow him. That defense against Boston College was not set. Like Lampkin should have been nowhere near that player. They weren't set. You just can't say follow them. You've got to be ready for it. So, yeah, I think Miami, to counter your point from yesterday, is extra frustrating because they're 6-18. They beat a CYO team, I think is one of their 6 wins, and now us. So it got lower. And so there's something between you and Paul, like, why are you trying to rationalize? Because if this were rational, we wouldn't be spending the money to be in the Dome setting records or calling in from New York City during the workday to talk about this. Like, trying to ask your fan base to be rational, I don't think that works. But this is frustrating, and I'm just hoping Red could pull out something over the next 6 games because this is tough, Brian. This is tough.
I'd say to your point, like what's so interesting here, and I think this is what has me very confused about like what's going on vis-a-vis Red and his coaching ability. Like, because last year, I don't know about you, Mark, like over the course of the year last year, I saw stuff at the beginning of the year. I'm like, well, he's got some stuff to learn. And then by the end of the year, I'm like, all right, I think he's getting a grasp of it. And it wasn't just because they were winning the games. You saw basketball stuff that felt like he was improving over the year. And then this year, we're not seeing that. So it's so hard to say, like, well, one year did he sort of know how to coach, and the next year he doesn't? Like, that's where I find it weird that it's like, all right, is it just this year they totally botched the roster, and that is leading to all of this? Or I guess, is there something else there? And that's, I think, what will become exceedingly apparent next year.
I think it's going down. It's a sophomore slump. I think we're probably expecting in football, right? Given we don't have McCord, it's going to be a tougher schedule. 7-5 isn't bad, but it's just this guy's fired up. He wants to be the coach. He doesn't want to move out of this community, but it is. I think it's okay for us to be frustrated as hell.
Oh, of course.
And just so ESPN, show us some frustration back. Don't tell us we should be frustrated for 5 minutes. And I'm just worried we might find a new low. God help us, we don't. But anyway, love the show. Keep it up.
Thanks, Mark. Well, I'm glad we let you play hooky from work here for a few minutes. Okay, Mark, down in NYC. Yeah, we're all frustrated. Like, it's very frustrating this year. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. Paulie's frustrated. Steve's frustrated. Red's frustrated. Griff's frustrated. Everyone's frustrated. JJ's frustrated. They're all frustrated. It's we're all just attempting to show it, I guess, probably in slightly different ways here. It is frustrating. But I think there's a lot of people out there that take their frustration and immediately reach for the detonator. Like, blow it all up, everyone's fired. Well, at least the way I'm approaching is, yeah, this isn't good right now. But I'm trying to look at the options that are, it doesn't matter if they're reasonable to me. I'm trying to look at the options that are, actually among the choices that are likely to be made and try to see what's in there before exploring other ones. That's where we're at. It's all frustrating, though. Like, they're 11-14. Syracuse basketball. That's not 20 wins. It's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating to all involved. All right, let's get another call here. Who do we got next? We got a guy, Scooter in Jamesville. What's up, Scoot?
Hey, Brian, maybe it's before your time. You ever hear the Sports Illustrated cover jinx?
Of course.
Well, there's a certain used car guy, and basically everybody that's gone on to advertise it, it's had some problems. Schrader hurts his shoulder. Benny Williams disappears. I don't think he got hurt. And then Freeman's hurt. So maybe you want to avoid the used car guy here because it seems like everybody's gone on. Even Lampkin hurt his back when he was doing the commercial. I noticed that Schrader's back doing the commercials for him.
Schrader, CFL quarterback Garrett Schrader. I heard an ad the other day.
I was going to say that. I didn't realize that. Did he start or play? I didn't know he was actually playing. I didn't realize that he was actually.
I think he must have been signed like after the season ended. I don't think he was involved because when the season ended, like November. I think he's like an off-season roster addition to whatever team he's on.
No, here's the problem, and it's not Syracuse. That's the thing. If you watch college basketball, other teams got the same problem as Syracuse, and it's chemistry because there's so much changeover. And here's the problem I got when I keep hearing, and it's not just Syracuse, but let Autry get more of his players in. The players are just getting replaced.
Right.
Who's coming back from this team if he brings players in? And that's the problem with college basketball because it takes 20 games to get chemistry. And you're not just seeing it just from Syracuse point. I mean, you just watch it. I had to laugh. If you watch college sports, either football or basketball, the announcers talk more about where these guys come from. Now, the former Alabama star now playing this way, or the former Oklahoma star, and Washington State. I think the quarterback went to Oklahoma or something like that. I mean, they talk more where they come from than where they're playing. And, it's like McCord. We all heard about Ohio State. What? He's a Syracuse University player now. That's the past. But the bottom line is, how do you bring in players if the other players are leaving? It's not like you're adding players. You're just replacing the players.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just, it's what college sports is now. I think we use the word frustration about 8 million times today. That's frustrating to all of us as consumers and viewers, as fans. Like, we don't know who these guys are. They're mercenaries more than anything at this point. You don't get to know the guys as much, which is, what I think a significant part of the fun of college sports was over the years. So I think that adds to it because you're watching, all right, say you're watching Syracuse basketball this year, and it's Jair Davis and Jaquan Carlos, Eddie Lampkin, and you don't know these guys. And
right.
What's the benefit of learning them? Because they're going to be gone next year.
Well, that's the point, and so that's what I'm saying about and like I said, I'm using this Autry by anybody. Have him, give him another year because he's going to bring more of his players in. Well, how many players from this team you think are going to be on this team, and all the freshmen coming in? So therefore, you're adding players, but you're not adding players. I think to the roster, you're just replacing the ones that left, just like last year. How many players left? So you're replacing the players, and that's all college basketball. It's just, to me, to be honest with you, the product isn't that great, especially if you can't shoot threes. I still don't understand if you're not hot from outside, why do you continue shooting threes? And you've seen a lot of games that way where basically it's like, man, and it looks like sometimes the coaches are afraid to really coach because they're afraid they're going to leave. And I'll give Izzo credit last year. He's playing a big game against Ohio State. One of the star players made a three and started chirping at the opposition's bench. He called timeout and just yanked him off the court. He's probably one of the last of the old school that can get away with it. But it's just, to me, I think they're afraid to talk about the problems of the team because they're afraid that they'll just walk away. And, Coach Boeheim, I remember one player right off the tip-off threw a pass half court, 5 feet into the stands, and that player didn't see the rest of the half. So
Trying to remember what was his line about Chris McCullough back in the day? He'd have to improve to be bad. I think it was just something like that.
What the two best lines Coach Boeheim was, and it's McCullough when they talk about the lotto, and he goes, what lotto? Is he going to win the New York State Lotto and the lottery? And the best one was Craig Forth. He's got no rebounds against somebody. He says even the dead guy gets at least one rebound. I mean, those lines I don't know work anymore, but that one about the lottery, about McCullough, of course he was in the lottery, but the Craig Forth one always stuck out to me. I mean, I guess people weren't sensitive back then. I guess I don't know. Whatever. I'm used to entertaining coaches coaching me and got me in the position to win games, and they weren't physical. They're nothing physical. It's just basically you're gonna do it right, or else we're not gonna leave. Right? Remember shooting free throws, and you told people you're gonna find out if you got mom's home cooking because he doesn't hit 5 in a row. We're gonna be here all night, and so stuff like that just doesn't happen anymore. But we hit free throws. There's more pressure in practice. It wasn't games. Games were fun.
There you go. All right, Scoot. Thanks as always. There's our guy, Scooter, with the call there. And yeah, I mean it's a whole different world now. Izzo probably is he's one of the last of that old guard kind of coach. All right, let's get one more call in before the break. We got our guy Vito in Liverpool. What's up, Vito?
Hey, Brian. Yeah, so that game Tuesday night kind of solidified it for me that I don't think Autry's the man, and all these people in the camp where they think, let's wait and see what the next recruiting class does. I don't think that's the right way to approach a coach. That's kind of like lipstick on a pig. You got a recruiting class that comes in and masks his deficiencies. That's not the way to go. And, you're playing a team that was 5-18 and 1-11 in the ACC. And you could not go in there and stop Cleveland. You had no answer for Cleveland. It didn't look like they had any game plan to stop Cleveland. And Moore comes in. He's not developed. He gets 11 minutes, doesn't do much. I think that's an indictment on the coaches not developing him as the season's gone on. He showed more than enough that he's capable of averaging 10 a game. Moore, I think it was the Cornell game where he lit it up. Was that the game where he had a great one?
Yeah, it was. I think it was Cornell. Then he had a nice game in the loss at Tennessee, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like I said, man, a lot of these people are in a camp where let's see what he does next year. I feel like they need to look elsewhere. You got to preserve that recruiting class and maybe involve Carmelo Anthony. His stinking name's on the Carmelo Center. It's not one of those deals where you get parents involved in who decides what coach comes in. But Carmelo's got a big voice. He's going to want his son playing for a coach that's going to send them into the tournament. And you got to involve him. He's probably coming back. I'm probably preaching to nobody right now. Autry's going to come back, but the recruiting class is not going to mask his deficiencies. He's not a good coach. 1-11 in the ACC, and they couldn't beat those guys. I just had enough at this point. That was a really discouraging game as a fan.
Yeah, not fun to watch. On Tuesday, Vito, that's for sure. All right, man, thanks for the call. As always, our guy Vito in Liverpool, but to Vito's other point, barring something just beyond my powers of observation right now, Red is going to be the coach of the team next year. That's not me saying, oh, it should be. No, I'm just observing the scene, what I think is going to happen, and that is what I think is going to happen. I don't think if you're John Wildhack, if you're the board of trustees, if you're anyone that was involved in this decision-making product, chancellor, whatever, I don't think you make that decision and give them 2 years. I don't think that's how they make a decision like that. And as frustrating as this year has been, and my goodness, we've set a world record in use of the word frustrating this hour. It's not like you say, well, Louisville moved on from Kenny Payne in 2 years. Kenny Payne's like the worst coach I've ever seen. Like he took Louisville and imploded the program in like half an hour. Like that was next level incompetence. Red, we've seen spurts. This year's not going well. Next year, you get a third season of data points. If it goes well, if it doesn't go well, I think we'll be able to really be able to plot out the whys a lot more next year. And if some of the stuff that's not working this year is overcomable or not. Because it could be. But we'll know a lot more next year. But for the rock bottom, Kenny Payne, come on. Yeah, it's terrible. It's the worst I've ever seen. Could it get worse? Oh, yeah. It could get worse. Let's hope it doesn't. But my goodness, it could. I've seen it. We saw it at Louisville. And thank goodness for them, it's gotten better quickly. But, can it get worse? Oh, yeah. It can. It can. That doesn't mean you should stay where you're at. But, man, to say it can't get worse, that ain't the case. All right, we'll take a break here in this hour brought to you by William Mattar. Phone lines remain open after this, 315-437-7644. Much more coming up here on a Thursday. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Hey, this is...
Oh, Q's Vegas. We live on the ledge. Yeah, that was his soft landing spot, Dilemma Q's. For all I know, I don't know anything about Kenny Payne other than his last 2 years at Louisville head coach. He's probably a perfectly fine assistant coach. Mike Lindsley, if you go check out the recent Table Hopping Magazine CBW, Mike did a Q&A with me. He Q'd and I A'd. He does podcasts now. Yeah, without the ledge, what are we even doing? To Mark's point in NYC, this whole industry is built on the ledge. I just have private school, blah, blah, blah. I have no earthly idea on what the legit outs are, buyouts, how real the years are in his contract. I don't know. Yeah, usually I have a decent read on it. This one, I have not a clue. I've not gotten any reliable word on what it really is. You hear 5. All right. There's no way they you give them at least a 4-year deal. That's just you can't hire a guy for less than that. That's just not how it works. I just don't know what any of the buyouts are or anything like that. Or we all hear they're in terrible financial situation. How bad is bad? Is it bad enough you literally can't afford it, or what? Yeah, worst guy at a bar. Oh, yeah. Our business is built on unhinged, Randy. Yeah, but where's that money coming from, CBW? What am I looking at here, Mike? Larry's in the hospital telling me they should have hired Jerry? Okay. He's calling from, are we going to kill Larry live on air? Oh, God. I don't want that on my conscience. A public vote of confidence never helped anybody with anything. What is Siena basketball up to nowadays? Siena basketball. Yeah, the public votes of confidence, or might as well be, I'm going to fire you later. a diddly poo from Wild Hack in a minute. When was he on with me? He was on with me before the Miami football game trying to push tickets. I mean, that was 3 months ago now, 2 months ago. Yeah, the vote of confidence only makes all this conversation worse. Well, he's not going to step down, Vito. Why would he step down? That would be wacky.
Brian Higgins.
Let's kick it. All right, rolling along here. Thursday. 315-437-7644. Phone calls coming hot and heavy today. We're talking hoops. Our guy Isaac Shade, Locked On College Basketball Podcast, joins us next hour. We'll get a preview of North Carolina from him as well. Let's go back to the phones. We got Larry, who's in St. Joe's Hospital. Larry, I hope you're doing all right.
Getting better. I've been here for 24 days. I got some internal problems, but it's part of life. In my opinion, I think they should have hired McNamara. I mean, I don't know what his record is. Where did he go, to Siena?
Yeah, he's 11-13.
Oh, it's bad. Well, yeah, I don't know. It depends on the captain. And what about the freshman? He's been hurt a lot, right?
Who, Donnie Freeman?
Donnie Freeman. So maybe the season would have been different if he was 100% throughout the year. And I mean, he's not obviously he's not like the prize recruit Carmelo was, but wasn't he like a top 50 player or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, Donnie is the highest ranked recruit they've gotten since Carmelo. He was in the top 10 in some of the recruiting services. Yeah, so having him healthy would have also been useful. Yes.
Okay, one more. Do they have a good recruiting class coming next year?
If you like Carmelo's kid and you like Sadiq White, who's another top 20 recruit, right, then you'll be in good shape.
Well, those are guards, right?
Sadiq is a forward. Cayenne's a guard.
Okay, and what about the center that came over for Colorado? Is he leaving after this year?
Yeah, he's out of eligibility.
So they're going to need another center?
Yes, I would imagine that will be the lead thing that goes into portal season this year.
All right, thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
All right, there's Larry in St. Joe's Hospital. Hope get better, Larry. To the Jerry point. I love Jerry. We all love Jerry. If you don't like Jerry, if you're a Syracuse basketball fan who doesn't like Jerry, I don't even, I'm without speech. I am wordless. I love Jerry. He's 11-13. I get it, he's at Siena. He took over a team that won 4 games last year. I'm not saying he's doing a bad job. He's 11-13. Red's 11-14. Like the Jerry would have fixed it crowd is like, okay. What? Like, I love Jerry. Jerry will probably do a nice job there. Maybe he won't. I don't know. Love Jerry, but we don't get those that often anymore. But yeah, let's just reel that back in a little bit. Jerry's 11-13. It's not like he showed up there with his miraculous Hall of Fame head coaching abilities, and he's sitting there at 20-4 in his first season or something like that. He's doing fine. They won 4 games last year. He's already won 3 times as many games as Siena won last year. Like, he'll be all right. I have full faith in Jerry that he'll get it cooking there in the Capital Region here in the next year or two. Because Siena, when Siena has a good coach, they always rise to the top of that league every 5-6 years or so, and then that coach moves on to greener pastures, Lewis Orr included, going way back. Paul Hewitt, Fran McCaffrey, like a lot of guys have been through there. But to say Jerry would have been better, where Jerry is better than Red, and I think this is why people like Jerry, because you don't see practice, you don't know what those guys are doing in practice. Jerry is better at the interview and the press conference and the whole thing. That doesn't make you a better coach or not, but it makes the presentation maybe a little more palatable. And that's how we started the show today with Red saying, one thing on one day, the other thing on the other day. I don't think it's going to be, how the two-faced guy, how could he? That's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing. It's just he's trying to find words for what's going on, and they don't come because, man, it's hard to figure out what's going on this season. Well, that was an eventful hour 1. We'll turn the page to hour 2 when we come back. Maybe a little football talk, but certainly we'll keep it rolling with hoops if you keep it rolling with the phone calls. 315-437-7644. Back next, hour 2 here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Yeah, Mike Dean. Siena was at rock bottom. CBW, yes. Yeah, like maybe, I mean, Jerry was here as the lead assistant last year. Maybe he and Red worked well together, and that's part of why last year was better. But to say that Jerry's like that would have all been different with Jerry. That I agree with, San Diego Q's. That said, it's hard to get one of those guys to agree to do that gig in this day and age. That's true, Spash and Louise. You heard it here, live. Oh, yeah. Could you imagine how, yeah. If Jerry was 11-14 this year, ooh, doggy. How they hired Jerry over Red? Red was the associate head coach. That's what I would say, going back to Q with the women's program. Like, Q had that fall into his lap. Like, the guy he worked for at Alabama for a year, Rick Moody, retired, but retired young. He was like 59, and Q got him to come up here basically for a retirement gig to be that guy for 4 years. And it really got the program going. Yeah, but that was never going to happen, T-Takes. Like, if you're going to go back in time, like, the only real what if that we've been over 8 million times, and we know Coach Boeheim loves the conversation, is what if Hopkins had taken over after the 2017 season? That's the real what if, or the 2018 season, or whatever it was supposed to be. Because if there was a turnover back then, it was going to Hopkins. I think he was supposed to have his surgery this week sometime. Yeah, I mean, he's been around, Joe, so if he's not there, that's a decent guess as to why. That I don't know, Joe. I did, but I think if Hopkins was going to have success, he would have had a much better chance of having success at Syracuse than Washington based on his recruiting roots. Like, he was plugged into the Northeast, recruiting-wise. Now, maybe he wouldn't have worked out as head coach. That said, he did win Pac-12 head coach of the year twice, and then it got worse and worse and worse. I don't think they should hire Hop now, Pat. I just say that is the biggest unanswerable question in Syracuse basketball history. Like, if you had made that transition when it was originally scheduled to be made, what would have happened? I have no damn idea. It's like you'd like to get a choose-your-own-adventure book and go back and just see what it would have looked like. Oh, yeah, probably, Joe. Yeah, you get a guy like him. Hey, no complaints about Weaver. Like, he got his mellow. He didn't need to do anything else. That's enough. That's huge. That's true, Pat. Some do that. Like, not anymore. The time was 7-8 years ago. If it happened then, maybe.
reason why. It's the 315 with Brian Higgins. Halfway home, we drive into the second hour with Verdict BMW.
That we do. Still a few more minutes for phone calls if you'd like. 315-437-7644. That was an active first hour. Man. Lots going on. Talking Q Soups these days. Houston, Carolina, 6 o'clock in the Dome on Saturday. Man, and that's, out of all of the things, out of all of the frustration, we'll use that word again, all of the frustrating things this season, there's the most frustrating. Syracuse is playing North Carolina in the Dome Saturday at 6 o'clock. Like in the past, that's like circle, 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 underline, 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 exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Now it's like, oh yeah, by the way. Oh my goodness, I need to do this now. I meant to do this before. I've been thrown off. This whole day's thrown off. Lots of calls. Right now, I'm going to tell you about Syracuse football and the NFL Combine momentarily. Right now, I got two, and it's not to the North Carolina game. I might have two for that tomorrow. Stay tuned. Right now, I've got 2 tickets to see Hardy. It is a country music concert on the Jim Bob World Tour. It's coming to the Summit Federal Credit Union Amphitheater at Lakeview. Is that what they're calling it now? It's at the Amp. September the 4th. 2 tickets. Caller 4 right now. 315-437-7644. 315-437-7644. Caller 4 right now. Hardy tickets at the Amp coming up in early September this year. All right. While we settle that business, I'll tell you about this. NFL Combine invites have gone out this morning, and 5 Syracuse Orange players have been invited. Kyle McCord, LaQuinn Allen, Aronde Gadsden, Elijah Clark, and Fadil Diggs. Come on down. 5 Orange players invited to the Combine. This is the most Orange players that have been invited to the NFL Combine in 19 years. It's kind of shocking it's 19 years because the last time there were 5 was in 06. That was smack dab in the middle of the G-Rob years, though admittedly these were Coach P recruits. 06, here, you want some blast from the past names? Kadir Drame, Ryan Lacasse, Quinn Ojanaka, a.k.a. professional wrestler Moose, Anthony Smith, James Weish. There's 3 defensive linemen from that 06 team. That was when they went 4 games. Man. But there we are. It's the first time in 19 years that the Orange have had 5 invites to the Combine. I look at it like McCord's getting drafted. It sounds like LaQuinn's getting drafted. Aronde's getting drafted. Fadil, I think, is getting drafted. Cinco, maybe, probably. You're looking at 4 or 5 guys. I mean, you're going back a long, long time till more than that. The last time more than 5 Syracuse guys got drafted was after 98. McNabb and the whole crew that he was running with back then. But great news for McCord, LaQuinn, Aronde, Cinco, and Fadil. They'll all be in Indianapolis coming up in early March for the NFL Combine. I'm sure we'll hear pro dates and stuff for Syracuse trickling out. I think we'll try to touch base with Kyle at some point. I want some of this stuff to play out a little bit before we talk to Kyle again, so we have new and exciting things to talk about with the now former Syracuse quarterback. So maybe we'll reach out to Kyle right around when he's back in town for his pro day. By then, he'll have gone through the Combine. He'll have talked to teams. Like he'll have stuff to say. He'll have stuff to say. So look forward to that. But man, 5 guys invited to the Combine this year. Last year, 1, Zeke Johnson. 2 years ago, 3, Bergeron, Tucker, Garrett Williams. 2022, 0. 2021, 3, Cisco, Melifonwu, Trill. Trill Williams is now a professional wrestler. They've changed his name to Trill London. That's boring. I don't like it. 2020, 4 guys to the Combine, led by Alton Robinson. 2019, just 2 guys. After the 2018 magical season, only Jamal Custis and Chris Slayton made it to the Combine. Not even our guy Dungy. 2018, nobody got invited to the Combine. Zaire Franklin, spurned from the Combine. He's done all right for himself. 2017, after the first year of Dino, only guy that got invited was Amba. You're going back, like, just not a lot of guys. Fran shows up, year 1, 5 guys to the Combine. 5 guys to the Combine. McCord, Allen, Aronde, Cinco, and Fadil Diggs. So cool to see the success. Obviously, Marlo Wax not among the group invited, nor Jackson Meeks, 2 of the other guys that are going to be in the mix for some kind of something here coming up, but that's what we got right now when it comes to Syracuse football in the NFL Combine, and something we'll continue to keep eyes on as we are, when are we now? It's February 13th. We are 2.5 months away from the NFL Draft, and hearing these guys and their names picked, hearing Syracuse University said at the NFL Draft, perhaps in the later rounds when they have the wacky people. Maybe somebody will go to the Cowboys and Drew Pearson will be yelling. You never know what's going to happen when it comes to the NFL Draft, but it will be really cool to hear these guys go on and make their move. With that, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk some hoops. We'll do it with our guy Isaac Shade from the Lockdown College Basketball Podcast. That's next. Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio. Yeah, for real, Ryan. Oh, yeah, Ryan? Yeah, I remember him being a good dude. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. September 4th. And it will be hard copy tickets that he will have to come down and pick up sometime. He will get a call when we have them. It'll be much closer to September 4th. Yeah. You were caller 1 and 5, Joe? So close. Hardy. So the Raiders are in pretty good shape at tight end right now, Pat. Yeah, Arande should have a... But they already have, they already got Michael Mayer also, and what's his name from Georgia. But yeah, you can't have too many good football players. Arande is a good football player. I see no reason why he can't succeed in the league. Yeah, but let's remember that head coach search T takes. Not a single one of us had heard of Fran Brown a week before he got hired. That was like a who the hell is this guy moment, and it worked out great. It's worked out great. But we didn't know that guy from a hole in the wall when it happened. Yeah, and that happened. What are the odds that the basketball Fran Brown is randomly going to call up John Wildhack and demand the job? I mean, a head coach search is fun. I will give it that. I mean, you talk about content. It is a content-filled operation. That's why I'll be intrigued to see what Isaac, because Isaac, he covers college hoops, but he covers Carolina primarily. Hubert Davis is a national title game. Last year was a 1 seed. This year they're potentially missing the tournament. Is he on the hot seat there?
all across central New York. It's the 315 with Brian Higgins.
That it is. Here we are. Rolling along here on this Thursday. Start to preview Saturday's game here a little bit. Cusick, Carolina, coming up 6 o'clock from the Dome on Saturday. With that, we'll bring on our friend from the Locked On College Hoops and the Locked On Carolina podcast. He's our guy, Isaac Shade. What's up, Isaac? How you doing?
Hey, Brian, I'm good, man. It's great to be with you. I wish it was just to not be talking about squaring off against each other, but we'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it here. And, man, I'm sure you're having a lot of the same conversations as we have about Adrian Autry every day around here. What's the current Hubert Davis vibe down in Chapel Hill? It sounds like there is unrest amongst the locals here in a struggling season for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so funny. I was ready to come on and commiserate about just that exact thing. It's funny, we both have coached early on in their tenures at these new schools, but in this portal and NIL era, there's just not the same longevity that you're afforded to be able to get your guys and get your thing figured out. If you can't get it going in a year or two, as we saw with Kenny Payne at Louisville, bye-bye, you're out the door, and that's the conversations we're probably both having right now, yeah.
And that's what's crazy about Hubert Davis, because he has gotten in and going to get points, right? They were a 1 seed last year. They made the title game 3 years ago. Besides that, it's been a rocky ride. Missed the tournament in between, and this year maybe lining up to do the same. Is that what's the hardest to square right now at Carolina? Used to annual success, and we've seen the pops, but we're not seeing the consistency right now?
Absolutely it is. The back and forth, it's I literally talked on an episode of my show earlier this week. The thing we have to be able to do is to isolate what the issue is, and how do you get to figuring out what that variable is. And even as I look back, let's remember the end of the Roy Williams era was not sunshine and roses either. Had there been a tournament in 2020, Carolina would have missed it. In 2021, Carolina loses to Wisconsin in the first round. Literally the only time in Roy Williams' entire career that he lost in the first round. So it's it is an extended 6-year issue for the Tar Heels right now. And so I think there is an area, for me personally, I would like to see Hubert Davis get another year in Chapel Hill. What I think has to happen is that he's got to be something I've talked about is instead of paying his buyout and instead of paying to hire a new coach, use that money to get him the guys he needs and to get him the general manager he needs and let him cook. As you said, he was a 1 seed last year. He's been to the national championship game, albeit in a year where things didn't necessarily go great the whole year. But it's the capability. So let's get him the things he needs around him. And then, if it doesn't go well, then I understand your hands are tied and you got to pull the trigger.
Yeah, and this is where I think it's the Carolina, because obviously you look at Carolina, Cuse, and Duke, all have gone from Hall of Famers and switched to assistants at their school. And the Dukes one has gone the smoothest, but they were also the program running the smoothest at that point. I look at Carolina and Syracuse. There had been slippage late with Jim Boeheim and Roy. Right. How much, we talk about it all the time with Red, how much with Hubert, since he was on that staff, is he getting the retroactive blame for the slippage as well? Because I think that's what we're hearing a lot here. It's hard to separate that, right? When you were on the staff, but you weren't the head coach yet.
Yeah, that is a hard thing to swallow because it's different in the Duke scenario because John Shire had been named head coach in waiting for that whole year of trade-off, right? In neither the situation for the Orange or for the Tar Heels did they have that, right? For Carolina, Hubert Davis, they didn't even know that Roy Williams was going to retire until April Fool's Day of 2021, and so then it was just then it became known that it was Hubert Davis. But what is unknown, and I don't know, you might know more obviously about the Syracuse side of it, was how much internally was Roy Williams already thinking about this and leaning toward giving Hubert Davis some of those opportunities. Obviously, he coached. Carolina still has the JV program. Hubert Davis coached that. But outside of that, it's hard to know. But, yeah, fairly or unfairly, you're going to shoulder some of that blame.
Yeah, and that's just we're certainly seeing it at Carolina. We're seeing it at Syracuse. We're not seeing it at Duke because they're succeeding it to the level. And we look at Miami and Florida State and Virginia, it's circling the league right now. It seems like half the ACC is dealing with this right now.
Yes. Well, and Leonard Hamilton now too. And so, Brian, next year, you might have this in your head already, but the longest tenured ACC coach next year is going to be Brad Brownell.
Yeah.
The second longest tenured coach in the ACC next year is Kevin Keats, who wouldn't be at NC State right now had they not had that miracle run last year. I mean, so this is a thing in the ACC and has to be part of why we see the struggles that we don't see in the SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12.
Yeah, what do you make of the league this year? Because we've talked about this. I think like last year and the year before, the struggles it was overblown. Like the metrics were telling a story that reality wasn't necessarily backing up. This year, the metrics and reality are in lockstep. Like the league's not very good this year. What is it? Is it NIL? Is it all these Hall of Fame coaches leaving? Is it talent? What do you put your finger on this year?
I think it's a mixed bag of a lot of those things, Brian. I think one of the things the SEC multiple years ago, I commissioned this, but they put together a thing to figure out why isn't the SEC succeeding at basketball. And the number one thing that they identified was rock star head coaches. And I don't mean that like in terms of celebrity, just in terms of like being dudes, right? Mm-hmm. And now you look at the head coaches in the SEC, and I think I would have to take that slate of coaches over what we have right now. And so I think that is a critical part of it. I think there's the discrepancy in the media money that the SEC and Big Ten get versus what the ACC and Big 12 get, which doesn't necessarily translate to what you can pay players, but it's a trickle-down effect that does affect the players you get. And so consequently now we have a higher caliber of player throughout the conference of the SEC and the Big Ten. And because the bloated conference, now we can no longer say, well, it just stinks because the ACC is bigger and our bottom end isn't as good. Look, that is true now of all of the Power 5 conferences in basketball, save the Big East, which is still sitting at 11.
Yeah, they're the only ones that's kind of aside from all of that right now. So we got our guy Isaac Shade with us of the Lockdown College Basketball podcast. All right, as far as the actual on-court stuff for Carolina this year, I think we all saw last year ended. R.J. Davis came back. It's like, whoa, they're bringing back the ACC Player of the Year. That's kind of wild. What is R.J. this year? Because his numbers are down across the board. Is it he's not playing as well? Is it defenses are throwing the kitchen sink at him? What do you put a finger on here this year?
It's a great question, Brian. We started to see it toward the end of last year when teams started guarding R.J. with length. One of the biggest issues for Carolina as a team is size. Backcourt and front court. I mean, it's across the board. That's a big storyline, by the way, for the game on Saturday. But with RJ, he's only 6'1", and so last year, like Duke put Tyrese Proctor on him, for example, and so those kinds of Alabama in the Sweet 16 loss, they used length on RJ Davis. Consequently, it was the only game all season he didn't hit a three. Those kind of things. And then I think RJ started to feel like take on too much of the load this year. Armando's gone. Armando Bacot is gone. And so then that defensive attention that was being paid to both Bacot and Davis is now focused on RJ Davis. And that makes life harder because there's not another offensive player commensurate with what RJ can do. Here's what's interesting to me, Brian. Ian Jackson, the very talented freshman, had taken on a great load of that, had hit 20-plus in 6 out of 7 games, starting 14 games ago. In the last 7 games, though, Ian Jackson has only hit double figures once, and in fact had his first bagel as a Tar Heel 2 games ago. In the last 7 games, though, R.J. Davis, like it completely lines up, has become R.J. Davis. In the last 7 games, he's shooting 48% from the field, 43.9% from 3, and 90.9% from the free throw line. So suddenly, in the last 7 games, R.J. Davis is R.J. Davis. And my hypothesis on that is it's happened as teams have had to put more focus and attention on Ian Jackson. It's freed up RJ to have less defensive attention paid to him.
Okay, yeah, interesting. It'll be interesting to see guard him with length. That's not, depending on what Syracuse does Saturday, that's not exactly something they've got to be able to do. So we'll see how they rotate that around. And just to verify, just to make sure, Armando Bacot is gone, right? Like he doesn't have like a 7th year. He's not still hanging around somewhere.
He is done and gone in a very distant memory, as you'll see a completely different front court that doesn't hold a candle, unfortunately, to Reverend Bacon.
Yeah, this is the first time I can recall that, like, Syracuse may, when you look at Lampkin, may actually have a size advantage against North Carolina in one of these ACC games. I mean, you think of Carolina for 30 years, you think they always got a big guy. This has to be very strange for them not to have a guy like that.
It is. Not only is it strange, I think it's unsettling for most of the fan base, Brian. Like, they don't know what to do. And in fact, I just recorded my show for tomorrow, and in that, I said, look, I am plenty concerned and worried about J.J. Starling, as any, right? But because of Carolina's lack of an Armando Bacot type or a Kennedy Baker, whomever you want to say, I'm actually more concerned with Eddie Lampkin for Saturday's game because of the literal weight that he can throw around that Carolina can't match. The heaviest person on Carolina's roster is 35 pounds less than Eddie Lampkin, and that's Jalen Washington. And so you look at that, and you think, okay, so what do you do defensively? Do you double down on him? Well, great. If you do that, Eddie Lampkin is the third leading assist man for this team. He can kick out. And I know Syracuse isn't a great three-point shooting team, but if you double down and give a shooter a wide open look, that spells trouble. And so, yes, I'm worried about J.J. Starling, but truly, Eddie Lampkin, the second he entered the transfer portal from Colorado and put his name in at Syracuse, I felt sweat trickle down my back, Brian Higgins.
All right. Last thing for you, Isaac Shade. What do you think's going to happen in this game? Well, we've gone full name here. What do you think's happening on Saturday? Because, like, Syracuse games, they've become a bit of a fool's errand to predict here the last few weeks.
You know what's funny? It's the exact same true thing for Carolina, too. It's funny, Carolina has faced a just slog of a season. Their non-conference schedule was the sixth strength of schedule in the nation. And then you add all that, they've front-loaded the ACC. And so right now on paper, Carolina has 6 games before facing Duke for the regular season finale. In that stretch of games, Carolina plays 6 teams, including Syracuse, who are out the top 85 in the net. So on paper, Carolina should be able to go on the road to Syracuse and do work. But this is the same Carolina team that needed to go to overtime at home against Boston College.
Right.
This is the same Carolina that has had multiple double-digit first-half leads lately and squandered them. And so it's so funny. You use the phrase fool's errand. I'm in that exact same boat. So basically my prediction is that this is a close game late. Carolina, 9 of their 12 ACC games, the score has been in one possession, one way or the other, with 3 minutes to go. Literally 9 of their 12 ACC games. So I'm looking at this and saying, okay, this is going to be a close game, and what it's going to come down to is which team can execute better down the stretch. I cannot quit calling the Carrier Dome. I apologize. And then... And that's ultimately what's good. So is it J.J. Starling that makes a play late? Is it R.J. Davis or somebody else like that? And so ultimately, I mean, I've got to ride with the Tar Heels. Hopefully, that doesn't anger Orange fans too much. But I legitimately think it's probably like a 3 points. Give me like 471 Carolina.
Yeah, it's 2 teams that both played Boston College in overtime at home recently. So,
exactly. But triple OT for you guys, right?
It just kept going. It kept going and going, Isaac. We had to wait a minute to start the post-game show on Saturday. All right, man. Always great to chat some hoops. I'm sure we'll catch up again before the end of the season, but thanks for hopping on for a few today.
Man, that sounds great, Brian. Good luck this weekend, buddy. Always good to be with you.
All right, there he is, our guy Isaac Shade. Check him out. Locked on Carolina, locked on college basketball, all over the college basketball podcast world. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, a West Coast check-in with Tim Leonard, getting you ready for hoops tonight. Lax on the weekend, Cuse in Maryland. Get a little 411. We'll tell you what's on tap. All that when we come back on a Thursday. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. All right, chat. I am going to go coach some basketball. I am going to leave you with an exciting conversation with Tim Leonard that I had this morning. Enjoy. You stay watching. As I should probably turn off my microphone. And I will talk to you all tomorrow.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
And it is. Here we are rolling along on this Thursday. Usually at this point, we're like just a few minutes away from Women's Hoops on a Thursday. But they're out on the left coast. We're a few hours away from Women's Hoops on this Thursday. 10 o'clock Eastern tip tonight. The Orange make the trip out to Stanford. Tim Leonard will be with you. Orange pregame coming up at 9:45. But you need not wait. We've got Tim with us right now from out on the West Coast. Hey, Tim. How was the trip out west?
Well, as you might imagine, Brian, it was long. It's quite a journey to get out here. Very long flight, a little bit of a long bus ride, but very nice to be here. It's, as far as this new addition to the ACC, as a broadcaster, I'm fine with it. I like going to California. I've never been out to this part of the world, so check another box, check 2 more campuses, and walked the Stanford campus yesterday. And I think I can confidently say that that is the nicest campus I have seen so far. Away campus, the Syracuse campus is great, but the Stanford one, very big, very impressive, and a lot of very smart people were walking by me as well.
Nice save there at the end there, Tim. Of course, the Syracuse campus is gorgeous and beloved by all. But yeah, regardless, it doesn't really matter who walked past you. You know that they're smart. That's just kind of how the Stanford campus operates out there.
I shouldn't even say walk past me. There were a lot of bike riders on this campus, very bike-heavy campus. So, more spread out. And I was walking with headphones in, and there were a couple times that, the bikes were zooming by me, a little alarming. Probably should have had the headphones in. It was a little dangerous, but I'm still alive, so we're good.
Okay. Tim's still in one piece. It probably, I bet at least one of the people that almost hit you is like a future Olympian or something. That's just the way they do it. Or Andrew Luck or whatever's going on out there. All right, so let's get into the hoops here a little bit. When the last we talked about women's hoops, it was, on the precipice of a very important week of are we going to have to worry about them making the ACC tournament or not. Then Syracuse goes down to Blacksburg and wins, and then Syracuse beats Wake Forest on Sunday in the Dome. Are they out of the danger zone now here, Tim? How did that week change the fortunes of the team?
Yeah, I think they're in a very good spot for making the ACC tournament. Honestly, if they beat Pittsburgh at home in the second to last regular season game, I don't really see a way that they don't make the ACC tournament. Right now, Wake Forest is basically a lock to miss the field after Syracuse beat them. They have just 1 win, and Wake's remaining schedule is actually a lot of ranked games. So, Syracuse is at 4 wins now. SMU has 2 wins, and they lost to Pittsburgh twice, including that wild come-from-behind game that Pitt had. So they don't have the tiebreaker for Pittsburgh. So SMU's probably out. So now you're looking at the likes of Stanford, Syracuse, BC, Clemson, all fighting for that last spot. And Pittsburgh is currently the team that is behind those teams and likely going to be the 3rd team out. So if Syracuse, they have 3 more games against teams that I just mentioned, including tonight against Stanford. It's a tough order because it's on the road and it's your first game of this trip. But they also play BC. They get a rematch against them, which I'm sure they're excited about after how bad the first game went against BC. So they get a rematch against them in the final game of the regular season, and then Pittsburgh in the game before that. And both of those are at home. So I think if you win 1 more game, you're definitely in. You maybe could sneak in if you just beat Pittsburgh. And honestly, I think it's looking pretty likely that it's going to be Wake, SMU, and Pitt that are the 3 teams that will not make Greensboro.
And the fact that Stanford's even in that conversation at all is just wild to comprehend. It's their first year in the league. Tara Vanderveer, one of the all-time great coaches. He retired just less than a year ago as the all-time winningest coach in the history of women's college basketball. How crazy is this? I get it's all new here this year at Stanford, but based on, the last 40 years, it never occurred to me that they'd be struggling like this year.
Yeah, this is really shocking. I will say, I think it's just going to be a 1-year blip for Stanford. They have the number 3 recruiting class in the country coming in next year, so they'll be fine. And also, their team is really young. They just, they lost Cameron Brink. It was already probably a changeover year. Then you throw in that they lost their coach. The transfer portal didn't go great for them. So I think it's just a 1-year blip. I think there's also something to be said for it's very tough for Stanford and Cal to stack wins in the league when you consider that pretty much half their games are jumping 2 time zones and going on those road trips. And, the numbers back this up, that first game, whether it's Stanford or Cal going east, or whether it's a team like Syracuse that is traveling out west, if you jump 2 time zones, that game and the first game of that 2 time zone jump right now, the team that jumped the 2 time zones is just 2-5 on the year. And one of those wins is Stanford going to Wake Forest, the team we mentioned that's definitely not going to make the ACC tournament. And they were like 12-point favorites at Wake and only won that game by 3. The other was just last week. UNC became the first team all year to sweep a road trip where it's a 2 time zone jump. Stanford or Cal have not done it going east. UNC went to Cal, won the first game, then beat Stanford in the second game. So those are the 2 wins, UNC at Cal in the first game and Stanford at Wake in a game that no matter where they played that and no matter the time zone jump, I think Stanford would have been big favorites in. So bottom line is it's tough to win this first game. And that's why when you size up what the Orange have here in their schedule, it would have probably been better if they played Cal in the first game, then got acclimated and played a worse Stanford team. But, I think I'm confident that Coach Jack and the team is doing all they can to try and get ready to make this time zone jump and get acclimated to it and be ready to go at Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, look back 2 weeks ago when the men did it. It was 25-2 against Stanford before we knew what was going on out there. And they played perfectly fine the rest of the trip, but that was too big of a hole to dig out of in the Stanford game. So, yeah, Cal has been ranked. They're not currently, if I'm correct on that, Tim. So it figures tonight, you're right, would be the quote-unquote more gettable game. But, yeah, it's got to be tough, right? They got there, practiced last night, tried to get on schedule. How are they handling the time situation and playing so late tonight?
Yeah, they practiced at 10 p.m. East Coast time last night, so 7 p.m. out here. And keep in mind, that's after they got up, practiced in the morning. I think last night was just a light shoot-around when they went to the gym. But, they traveled all day and then basically forced themselves to stay up and go to the gym at the same time so that I think then you're sleeping in a little bit later and you're adjusted to the time as much as possible. And then when they play at that time tonight, it is not that different because they just did a practice and went to Maples at that time last night. So that's as much as you can do. I mean, they traveled out a day before. It was a nice charter flight and no problems with that, which is, I'm sure, a big advantage to, if you had to fly commercial, obviously that would be an all-day affair. It still was a very long flight. So, it's an adjustment. It makes sense to me that the stats are this way. I think it's the same thing in the men's game. I haven't looked up the numbers, but it just anecdotally, it feels like Big Ten women's basketball, Big Ten men's basketball, now that they're dealing with these time jumps, this is just something we're going to have to consider, and everyone's trying to figure out how to navigate that. I will say the one thing with the Stanford game tonight is no doubt their best player, Nunu Agara, who is a sophomore for them, averaging 17 points and about 9 rebounds per game. She's top 10 in the ACC in points and rebounds. She is, as far as we can tell, questionable for this game tonight because she went out in their terrible loss to Notre Dame. They just lost to Notre Dame by 49 points, which was the worst loss in program history in terms of margin of defeat. She played just the first 5 minutes of that game, fell kind of awkwardly on her tailbone, did not play the rest against Notre Dame, did not play in Stanford's last game at Louisville when they played pretty well actually at Louisville and lost by 9 points. So we don't know if she's going to play tonight, but if they don't have her, then that really increases the Orange chances.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they were down. I mean, they got blasted last game. Like, almost all that lead was built in the first half, too. They were down crazy at halftime in that game against Stanford. As we got Tim Leonard here. So, you're out on the West Coast. You won't be down in College Park on Saturday for Lax. But, man, we got ourselves a matchup here with Syracuse and Maryland halfway through February. This is the first of many of these this year, but this will be a really exciting test, it looks like, this week.
Yeah, I can't wait to consume that game like a fan and listen to Jack Gordon and Kyle like some of you do sometimes when it's me and Kyle. It's going to be really exciting to see how Syracuse stacks up in that game. I think they definitely have a better roster than Maryland. I think they have more returning pieces. But the thing with Maryland that, you looked at their roster in the last couple of years and it feels like they've taken a step back. And even at this point last season, we were saying the same stuff. Like they lost Eric Maliver. He transferred to Duke. So they've got some holes to fill. They don't have Logan Weirman for the first time in 20 years, as Kyle and I were joking. Somehow he is not taking face-offs for Maryland, which I'll believe it when I see it on Saturday. But they have some holes to fill in their roster, but They had that same story last year, and then boom, they were in the championship game. So they're always one of the best coach teams in the sport with John Tillman. It's always a really tough place to play. And it's definitely a step up in competition, just as the Towson game was a step up from the first 2 games. So very curious to see how Syracuse does. But to this point, through 3 games in the season, I think it's right to expect the Orange to go down there and probably win that game. And, if they don't win it, that's fine, because they're going to get plenty of chances at top 5, top 10 games. But this would be making a statement to go down to Maryland and win your 4th game of the season.
Yeah, plenty of chances upcoming with, Hopkins, Cornell, the ACC, Notre Dame, Virginia, Duke. All of those, I think, are top 7 opponents right now, along with Maryland. So the schedule is certainly stacked. But, man, you've seen the first 3 games here, Tim. They haven't set a foot wrong yet, and this team looks exceedingly, exceedingly dangerous right now.
It does, yeah. I mean, when you talk about question marks with this team, it's hard to find some right now. I think I'm curious to see how good the defense will be against a team like Maryland, but through the first 3 games of the season, they've allowed just 17 goals, which you got to go back to 1969, the last time they've allowed that few of goals to the first 3 games of any Syracuse men's lacrosse season. So Jimmy McCool, I thought was, overall, he's been pretty good. I thought the second and third quarter, he wasn't great against Towson. The fourth quarter, they just dominated, and Towson never saw the ball. And you got to give credit to John Mullen and the face-off wings, the rope unit. Everyone's been playing well. Syracuse, I believe, is much improved this year in terms of ground balls, which that's been a stat that has kind of been a bugaboo for them the last couple years. So they just are playing a little bit better in kind of the little things. Riding looks better. Clearing looks better. They're getting more ground balls. These are the things that you have to be good at to win a national title, which is definitely this team's goal. So, I think Jimmy McCool in net, the question mark with him is still a little bit of a question mark, just because he hasn't been in one of these games before, like Maryland, really. Right. Or we expect this to be a close game in the fourth quarter. That's going to be kind of uncharted territory for him in terms of college lacrosse. But to this point, he has looked very solid in net, with the exception of maybe, one bad quarter against Towson.
Yeah, if this game's not close in the fourth, that is either a big statement by the Orange or a shocking, whoa, maybe we need to reevaluate here. So it's going to be a big-time game coming up this Saturday. All right, Tim, enjoy Cali. We'll talk to you when you get back here next week.
All right, Brian. Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Well, there he is, our guy Tim Leonard, out in California as we roll along here on this hour. Brought to you by DVOffers.com, powered by Drivers Village, which remains in Cicero.
Here's the 411.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone. Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
In the 315.
So you're going to be doing that all week, right?
Nah.
Paul has appeared.
You want to know what's going on?
What is going on?
It's freezing in here.
Well, I am. I'm quite comfortable.
Are you?
Yeah.
I came in. It was an Arctic change, is what happened from out that door.
Yeah. It's like refreshing for your body.
It's cold.
It's like going into a cold plunge or something.
It's cold.
Yeah.
It's cold. My bones do not feel refreshed.
Okay. Your bones have aged.
They feel cold.
Okay. We'll huddle for warmth after the show.
All right, that works for me.
Okay.
So, what year is it?
Your bones are apparently in 2084. The rest of us are here in 2025.
Okay, so let's start with 2034 news.
Oh.
Because that's timely.
Okay, so 9 years from now.
9 years from now.
Got it.
A Saudi official has confirmed that alcohol will be prohibited during the 2034 FIFA World Cup.
Well, I'm boycotting.
That's devastating.
Okay.
It's just devastating news.
Yeah, the soccer hooligans can't deal with this.
No, they can't. I mean, how is England going to... How's the team even going to go there?
Yeah, I don't know. I had forgotten that's where the World Cup was in 2034.
So would I, to be honest with you.
There we are.
Should we move back to 2025?
Sure.
Okay. So Daytona 500's this weekend.
That is this weekend.
Which I'm very excited about.
Paul's a big fan of the left turns.
Huge fan of left turns.
Mm-hmm.
They go right sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not most of the time.
If they go right at Daytona, that is not going to do you well.
No, but it will happen.
They have big walls there.
Right will happen at Daytona, and somebody will go into a wall. Can this finally be the year that Kyle Busch or Brad Keselowski wins a Daytona 500?
Is Keselowski still racing?
Yeah.
So no.
He's still racing.
No.
No?
No. Daytona's had a lot of rando winners
A
recently.
lot of rando winner. Michael McDowell, his
Yeah.
only wins there.
Yeah, that guy.
Go back, now what is it, 13 years ago, I think at this point, Trevor Bain.
Yeah, there's just a lot of random thing. And then, like, right before the end of the race, like, all the people you know are going to be in a big crash.
Yes, that is what happens. That's been Kyle Busch's Daytona 500 from, 2005 till now.
Yeah.
He pretty much just ends up in a big wreck at the end.
Eventually, there's going to be a spectacular crash, and then somebody will have a crazy couple lap dash around the track and win the race.
No, win the race.
Yeah.
And they'll hold the Harley J. Earl.
Spoiler. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Spoiler.
what are you doing?
Spoil the race.
NASCAR's going to come after us now.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
See
if the man that sort of knows has any thoughts on Daytona on the show tomorrow.
It's true. Yeah. The Sacco 6-pack should have something in there. And then, considering you are, for some reason, a Boston Red Sox fan.
Go Sox.
Gross. Are you going to be tuning in on April 8th?
No. What? I'll let you finish the sentence.
No, you're not.
What's on April 8th?
April 8th, only on Netflix.
Okay.
The Clubhouse, a year with the Red Sox.
Which year? Like this year?
It was last year. So
last year?
Crap year. Yeah.
I got to watch last year again?
Well, part of the trailer, the first on-field footage is Tristan Cassis limping his way down the first base, and then he was pretty much done for the year. So you get that to look forward to on April 8th.
Great. So I need to relive last year's Red Sox?
Yes. They were a good team.
I'm good.
I'm a Yankees fan. They were a good team.
You know what Netflix did just have out recently was the documentary on like the 03-04 era. That was very well done.
They did.
That was excellent. I enjoyed those Red Sox.
I'm not a fan of those Red Sox, but it was a well done. Much better than the 30 for 30 that was done on it.
Yeah, the 30 for 30 was terrible. That series was awesome. And it was the exact same topic.
Thankfully, it was not really old enough to watch that.
They did the 30 for 30 too soon. You can't
True.
They did it in like 2006. So we're like, what? It just happened. I haven't even forgotten it yet. This one you had all the guys and Pedro, and I love Pedro and Ortiz, and you had all those, and Pedro it's like I will beat up Don Zimmer, and I don't care.
I love that Pedro is like, I don't know how many downs he's done on it now, but he has doubled down on that ever since it happened.
And
I love he's just like, he's an old guy. He's running at me. I'm throwing him to the ground.
Yeah,
deal with it.
All
people.
things considered, he threw the old man to the ground rather gently, considering his other options.
He did. He could have just knocked him out. He didn't do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of knockouts, I know what you'll be tuning into. I think it's April 19th.
Okay.
To be fair, nobody will be tuning into it, so it doesn't really matter what the date is.
Oh.
Rough and Rowdy, put on by Barstool.
Okay.
In West Virginia.
Okay.
Will feature.
Where in West Virginia, do we know?
It doesn't matter.
I know Morgantown.
It's probably going to be. That's the only part of West Virginia that is worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely Cumberland, Maryland is not worth anything.
Okay.
They will be featuring Pat Mahomes
Senior
versus John Rocker in the greatest boxing fight the world has ever seen of subpar relievers.
And they just got into a fight or a quote-unquote fight at like the Super Bowl, or what was going on with that?
Seemed like two old men who were just yelling at each other.
They were yelling. Yeah. What is this? Was this fake beef to set up this thing, or did they have like weird national baseball beef from 1998 that we just didn't know about?
See, I mean,
they're both relief pitchers. How do they have beef against each other?
That's what I mean. I mean, Rocker had one good year, and then a beautiful Sports Illustrated article came out. Beautiful is not the right word to use.
Yeah,
there.
you got the one guy that was a big racist.
Yes, huge.
And you got the other guy that's got like an arm-long list of DUIs.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're gonna fight each other.
They're gonna fight each other in a boxing match.
So, and I believe, I'm not positive on this, but Rough and Rowdy, I think, does feature stuff like midget wrestling.
Okay.
And other West Virginia activities.
Uh-huh.
So this is going to be a banner night for the game of baseball, if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, I'll be tuned into that.
Honestly, Dave Roberts' steal of second against Mariano, or two all-right relief pitchers who one happens to have a son that's a great quarterback.
Yeah, how is Pat Mahomes Jr. going to let this occur?
I mean, Dave Portnoy's doing this, and in the video he put out saying this is happening. He was like, breaking news, huge news from Dave Portnoy. He referenced that Pat Mahomes hates, or well, I don't know if hates, but is not a fan of Barstool, and he was like, we can let bygones be bygones. I will give you front row tickets. I'll pay for them. You and your family can come watch your dad beat up or get beat up.
Okay.
And then Rocker put out a picture of him flexing or whatever with old man bones, showing day one of training's done. Pat Mahomes Sr. does not know what he's done. Pat Mahomes Jr., stop trying to cancel this and getting in our way. So it looks like Mahomes is trying to cancel his dad's moment.
But will Dave review the pepperoni roll while he's in West Virginia, which is a West Virginia staple? It's not really pizza, but it's
not really pizza.
It's pizza adjacent.
He reviews non-pizza things while doing pizza.
Yeah,
he's done it.
There's a question. There's a question.
Rough and Rowdy, April 19th. As Gomez put it this morning on Gomez and Company, week after Billy Joel's here. So you have 2 great weeks to look forward to coming up.
So I got a lot of things to work into the plan. There we are. That is the 411 of a lot of stuff that you're just not going to do going forward. What are you going to do tonight? We'll tell you that as we put the reps on it right now.
Here's what's on tap tonight.
Remember when we were just talking to Tim like a few minutes ago? You remember that? Yeah, you remember that. Women's basketball game tips tonight at 10 o'clock out on the West Coast, Syracuse and Stanford. Tim will be with the Orange pregame right here at 9:45. Tomorrow on the show, it's a Friday. You know it. We will have Mario on. We'll get the six-pack. We'll hear from the man who sort of knows. No wrong answers. Get you ready for Houston, Carolina on a Saturday. Get you ready for the Lax game on Saturday as well. Houston, Maryland, and all that good stuff. With that, we say good night. Talk to you tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.